Hello, and welcome to the Bomb Squad podcast, where in the name of the moon, we're going to punish you. With the Bomb Senshi today, I am Ethan Hawker with...
I'm Tim M. Sullivan.
And I'm Austin Liebelman.
And today we will be discussing Sailor Moon R, the movie, the first Sailor Moon film, and part of our ongoing anime retrospective of nostalgic films, and sort of the B-side to our Dead Zone podcast, which you should listen to now. Go do it. It's great.
We'll finish this one first.
Or pause this one and listen to that one, as long as you listen to both. Either way. Leading things off, as per usual, we're going to start off with our own connection to Sailor Moon in general, and I'm going to let Tim go first.
Like I kind of mentioned on the Dead Zone podcast, I didn't grow up with cable, and this was one that I didn't really seek out. Like, DBZ had the bigger appeal to me because it was more of a boys show, whatever that means. This was back in the 90s, early 2000s, where the marketing was just if it's for girls, it's not for boys. Just an absolutely stupid mindset in retrospect. And it's weird because I did watch Card Captors on Kids WB, and I like that show a lot. And I think that might have had something to do with the weird marketing of it, to trying to make it more appealing to boys by making it less centered around Sakura. That's a show that I really enjoyed, and I watched that uncut recently. I've kind of grown more open to magical girl type shows as I've gotten older. Revolutionary Girl Utena is one of my favorite anime of all time. It's just a fantastic series, which was also directed by Kunihiko Ikuhara, which he directed this film. He directed, I think, a bunch of the Sailor Moon stuff. So that's something that I also think is kind of interesting, just seeing his work. So I did start watching Sailor Moon, I think in 2020. I started watching it on Hulu since Viz had the new uncut English dub up on there. So I watched the first 2 seasons and part of season 3, and I kind of dropped off it for a while. At some point I need to come back to it. Yeah, that's basically my history with it. I'm more familiar with it now than I was prior. It wasn't something that I grew up with, but I've watched it a little bit as an adult.
Especially if you didn't have cable or anything like that, you're sort of not going to be seeing it quite so much. And I don't know, I've always wondered if there was a bit more of a stigma surrounding Sailor Moon as a girl's cartoon, and it's always been pigeonholed with crummy time slots and that sort of thing on top of it, even compared to Dragon Ball.
As I've watched it as an adult, I've realized that it's just kind of a goofy tokusatsu show. It's Power Rangers, and it's great. You have villains who have a tire for a vagina. It's amazing.
God, all the race car themed villains. Oh, I love them. There's the 2 that just go vroom 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 vroom. In the English dub, and that's all that the sound effect they make. I love it.
It's just goofy shit, and it's fun.
Yeah, it is very silly, and I think, I don't know, I wonder if that turned off some people, young boys, because it's not only is this for girls, but also it's kind of goofy and weird. Especially, it was so inaccessible for the longest time because of rights issues. It had a DVD release from ADV that was super limited and cost a small fortune, and DVDs from Deke, which were also just incredibly expensive until the Viz reissue. So it was pretty inaccessible throughout much of the mid to late aughts. But Austin, what is your familiarity with the Sailor Moon, your history with the franchise?
Before I was born, my dad got a job at McDonnell Douglas, and then he proceeded to have 2 kids, me, and then a year and a half later, he had my sister. We were fortunate enough to have a stay-at-home mom who ran a daycare out of our childhood house, and one of the perks of having an engineer dad and a daycare mom is that there's a lot of VHS tapes on our shelves and a lot of friends to watch the VHS tapes with. On to Sailor Moon, I remember we had the ones with the pink spines and the little hexagons by the labels. The shot from Sailor Moon that sticks out in my mind for some reason is the shot from Crystal Clear Destiny, where I think it's Malachite takes all the rainbow gems, and that just sticks in my memory because the crystals reminded me of Chaos Emeralds or Pokemon badges. And there was this one called The Day of Destiny, where everybody died. And I just remember watching that in horror at my cousin's house and not really knowing how to respond because I hadn't seen like everybody die in any children's shows I've been watching.
You didn't watch Dinosaurs yet.
Wait, everybody dies in Dinosaurs?
At the end of it, it's like the extinction Endgame, basically.
Yeah, the Ice Age, and they all just sort of gather on the couch, and as they slowly await the inevitable.
I guess kids had it rough in the 80s. I don't know. Soviet Union really freaked out the people making kids shows, didn't it? Yeah, I watched Sailor Moon a fair deal with my sister when I was a kid. We both grew up to pursue kind of dream hobbies. Like, she does magnificent cosplays, and I still try to make videos. But now the planets have aligned, and I have to talk about Sailor Moon as a grown man with a film production degree. And Maya couldn't be on with us today because she was doing something, but I did get to freak out over text messages with her last night while I was rewatching this. I was sending her screenshots, and we were having a pretty okay time.
I'm glad that you were sort of able to reconnect on some level over a shared thing you had from your childhood. That's always very fun. I think that's how, like, a lot of people probably viewed them, particularly if you're in that sweet spot of age where you might have not seen it very much on television. You kind of only had tapes and scattered slipshod ability to watch it, not really in one sitting, which is, I guess, true of most anime. But Sailor Moon, I think, particularly suffered from that, again, because of the weird distribution stuff going on. Like, for me as a kid, I watched a tiny bit of it on TV, but not much. I think it was, part of it was, like the stigma of being a young child. Like, I didn't have a sister or anything, so there was no excuse, I guess, to watch Sailor Moon, and none of my friends watched it. So I was like, oh, well, I'm interested, but also I'm embarrassed because I was, as a young person, even into like middle school and early high school, I was deeply embarrassed about how much I liked Japanese animation.
So really, this podcast is about toxic masculinity and the stigma it has on young boys.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah.
Like my favorite color when I was a little boy was pink, and I got the pink Game Boy, and I was made fun of for it. And yeah, that was always a big thing. I liked, Hello Kitty and that sort of thing as a young man. And it was something where it was like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. Be ashamed. Like, my parents were supportive, my mom especially, but the Middle West writ large isn't great for it. And so Sailor Moon, like, as I got older, I would kind of try to watch it, but it was sort of the combination of trying to watch the Deke dub, and being a bit self-serious about it, and being a little embarrassed by it, that I could just never really stick with it. It wasn't until I found the YouTube channel Sailor Moon Says, which uploaded clips from the English dub. Usually, like, they would do a fair bit for them too, like a proper color correction and that sort of thing, from the sources and all that, and resyncing to the Blu-rays, that dub and everything. At first it was just a funny thing where it's like, haha, this dub is not very good, or like it's charmingly weird, but then I just started to grow this really unironic appreciation for it through watching those clips, because I started getting into it when I was getting into art and animation school, and it's like, oh wait, there's a lot of cool stuff here. The aesthetic is gorgeous, and it's got so much interesting stuff going on, and even the vocal performances are so like loose and fun in their way that I can't help but appreciate those, even if the adaptation is more where the issues lie. And then I started watching the television series, and I actually got to see this movie in theaters a few years back. Fathom did a double feature of Sailor Moon R the movie and Sailor Moon S the movie, and then they did a separate screening of the Sailor Moon Super S film, and I got to see all three of those, and this was before I'd really watched the series, and I really loved getting to see those on the big screen especially. But the thing was, I remember this particular film, Sailor Moon R, I remember it being sort of the weakest of the bunch, which upon reviewing, I don't think that's true at all. Maybe it stands out the least, like, because the S film is the one where Luna falls in love with a astronaut boy, or with a boy who believes that a woman lives in the stars and is slowly going insane, and who is dating an astronaut himself, and then she turns into a lady at the end, like a Kaguya, Princess Kaguya thing, and it's weird, but I kind of love it. And then the Super S movie, which is all your favorites. You've got the Outer Senshi, Neptune and Uranus showing up in that one. It's weird and fun, and R is sort of like more what you would expect from a Sailor Moon movie, which is probably why it didn't stand out so prominently, but sort of transitioning into this film, talking about it in and of itself, it does sort of represent a transitional stage in that it's not only is it the first Sailor Moon film, it's directed by Kunihiko Ikuhara shortly after he took over as series director for the show, because he'd worked on the show prior, but he was taking over from Junichi Sato as series director partway through Sailor Moon R. And this particular film is sort of a retread of the Makai tree arc from the television series, but unlike the Dragon Ball films, it kind of has its own narrative through line that gets you there. And just some other sort of general production information to sort of understand what this film is. It is technically feature length at more than 60 minutes, but it's one of those things that was made to be programmed as part of like a festival, like a series of films with like a Dragon Ball film or a Himitsu Ako-chan film or that sort of thing, where they would just put a bunch of them in a block and ship the kids off to the theater for the day, and they can watch all their cartoon favorites on the big screen. Despite that, it doesn't have the usual problems of one of those. Like it feels like a real big boy movie in the way like Dead Zone doesn't quite achieve, where it's like, oh, this is an OVA length thing where you get to see fun, cool fights, and it's good, but like, I don't know, it's not terribly narratively satisfying. But before we get into that, I would just like to hear, Austin, your overall thoughts on the film.
I watched the movie twice last night. I watched the Pioneer Deke dub. I might mix those up. And then I watched it in Japanese afterward. The plot is super simple. It's just an old friend getting between a guy and his girlfriend. Classic bisexual shenanigans. Since Sailor Moon has a history of having like lesbians and drag queens that got erased from the Deke releases.
That's not a boy. That's a girl.
I figured that the second that I switched it over to Japanese, the two male characters would be gayer than $3 bills, especially after that shot of them in bed together at the orphanage. But to my surprise, the biggest changes between the sort of English dub and the Japanese release is that people say damn it a lot. Like, they say damn it a lot. And other than that, there's this one scene that stood out where Sailor Mercury makes a joke in Japanese about how a lot of men seem to be into Darien, and everyone gets on her like, what are you insinuating? Whereas in the English dub, she's like, oh.
That's strange, seeing how everybody's in love with him. Everybody including you?
And the other Sailor Scouts team up and are like, oh, well, you like Darien. It's like they swiped the one gay thing off the table and slammed straight person stuff down at Mach speed. Now that I'm older, because I did, even though I had a sister to watch this with, I did feel great shame watching Sailor Moon and anime to some extent as a kid. But now I can better articulate the things that make this feel sort of dramatic in that old girly way that made me sort of shift in my seat as a child. Things that I noticed. For starters, every time they get hurt, there's a slow motion shot of the fallout. It's very extra. People get tied up frequently. There's a ton of hostage situations where somebody is tied up, and the most obvious one is everyone's crying. That all said, I really loved rewatching this both times that I watched it. The nostalgia that I had for Sailor Moon came in handy as a tool, specifically for the transitional sequences where they, turn into Sailor Scouts or they're charging up their weapons. Sid walked in and sat down and watched the second time I watched it in Japanese, and he thought those sequences were more so interrupting the movie, and I couldn't just get it in his head, just like, no, this is Sailor Moon. This is what they do. This is part of it. So that helped me with my viewing experience. Highlights were probably Chibiusa conjuring a realistic handgun after Sailor Moon is crying about needing to be protected. I didn't see that coming at all. And of course, the wild pop song in the Deke version at the finale. Watching Darien turn into a space prince and then Fiore sacrifice his life to save Sailor Moon hit a perfect note with me. If I had to recommend a specific version to watch, if you grew up with the Deke dub, you should stick to that version, if only for the 90s insults that Fiore hurtles at Sailor Moon. He says stuff like,
and you swore me eternal friendship, but now you choose this dingbat over me, Darien. This girl has you bamboozled, Darien!
He does everything short of call her meatball head. Overall, I had a complete blast watching this movie. It turns out, I guess I always did like Sailor Moon. I'm just old enough to be comfortable with it now.
That's something a lot of boys, younger boys who watched it can relate to. Jesus, I know I certainly can. Christ.
I'm more afraid of looking back when I'm old and saying, why didn't I have more fun?
But yeah, Tim, what were your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, so Austin said that he watched the Japanese version and the Deke version. I actually watched the Viz version because that's what I'm familiar with, because that's the version that I watched on Hulu. And I think that dub's pretty good. It's pretty solid. We have Ben Diskin as the villain, which it's always nice hearing him and stuff. And I think he does a good job in the performance.
For daring to deceive Mamoru, I will make your death painful.
Yeah, just a fun little, basically just feature-length Sailor Moon adventure, and like I do think that like the villain's motivation of being gay for Tuxedo Mask is just a brilliant stroke of writing. It's just fantastic. This is my first time watching a Sailor Moon movie. It was kind of nice to just kind of seeing like a bigger thing with that. I do kind of think that like the transformation sequences right in the middle of that one fight scene were kind of funny, and that like it's in every episode, but for some reason here it was just like a little like it felt longer somehow, just like being inserted in this movie. But like that's the thing is like with stuff like that you gotta do the transformations. Like it's the tokusatsu thing. You gotta have those sequences. It kind of felt like a pretty well encapsulated kind of Sailor Moon story. Like I think the ending kind of felt like a season finale kind of big blowout. I think it was fun. It was cool. That's about it.
Yeah, sort of like what you were saying with the transformations. I imagine like the thought process there was more like it's going to be really fun to see them on the big screen, like see them all go through, particularly. So like I get why they're included. And the one thing I do like is I do like the use for the transformation themes. They actually do a new version of it where they announce their name and they sort of scat sing every other line in it. And I kind of love that version of it too. I don't know why. It just makes it feel bigger, like more significant, even if the animation hasn't really changed from the redone transformation sequences for R. And again, sort of on that note of like seeing things from the show, I suspect that's part of like, aside from they have the model sheets lying around. That's why they sort of reused Ale and Anne's design for Fiore and Super Fiore, Xenian Fiore. I always thought that was weird, but now I just sort of accept it. Like it's fine, whatever. They share the same voice actor as well. The Xenian Flower has Anne's Japanese voice actress, and Fiore has Ale's Japanese voice actress. I do kind of love that when Fiore gets more powerful, he gets the female color palette. He gets Anne's color palette instead. That's girl power, baby. I like this film a lot. I think it ties, like, narratively, it's a lot more solid than I initially gave it credit for. Like, it sort of establishes the dynamics pretty immediately. There's that very satisfying finale when they're crashing into the Earth, and you have all of the girls, because they pick on poor Usagi a lot, but there's a sense that they genuinely care about her at the very end as Moon Revenge plays. And what I do like is for every flashback, the part of Moon Revenge is it's an ensemble piece with all of the Japanese voice actresses, and so each one sort of, each actress sings when their flashback is going, respectively, which I like. Like, it's kind of a relatively subtle touch. For all things, I think, that really comes full circle. I like the connection between Usagi and Mamoru when the flashback of them as wee babies when Usagi's at the hospital because Shingo is being born, her little brother.
My mummy just had a baby boy today, and I got these roses for her.
So what huge mistake did Mom kick you out for this time? I sure wish I had a sister who wasn't a total loser.
Like they weave it in, like everything feels pretty natural, all things considered. And the Deke dub is, of course, a lot of fun.
Why is it, do you think, we fight for you? Mental void?
I really love Terry Hawk's performance as Serena / Usagi. I think she's very hyperbolic in her performance, but she really toes the line between like Austin said this earlier when we were discussing like royalty, but also like sufficiently spacey enough of a space cadet that like it really fits with her character for me, anyways.
Okay, you're done. I need my pumpkin to myself now. Ta-ta, Strangeoid!
And Stephanie, I watched all three. Stephanie Shea, of course, puts in a good performance as Usagi as well. I quite like it, even if it's, I don't know, like it feels a little off, but it's probably just because I'm so used to that Hawks performance.
Don't worry, I'm going to be just fine. We'll all go back to Earth together, okay?
And of course, Kotono Mitsuishi as Usagi is good. She's good as like crybaby Usagi. Like she gives her that characterization very well, I think.
だって、みんなが苦しむの、もう見てらんないよ。
overall, I just think that the narrative arc here is strong. The action is all good. You kind of get everything you'd want to get out of it, and you also get a fairly satisfying story emphasizing Mamoru without him like completely taking up the film, which is sort of a nice line to toe. Sort of going back to Dark Side of Dimensions, where I thought the narratives were a little split there. It integrates its B plot ostensibly better into the overall narrative, I think, despite maybe not being overall a better film than Dark Side of Dimensions. Maybe. I don't know. I'll think about that one.
It's close.
Yeah.
That's a subjective taste thing.
Yeah, it's also going to be like, which thing do you like more, Sailor Moon or Yu-Gi-Oh, to be fair. Like, I think, and they're also just different films, frankly. Moving on to, I want to sort of spotlight the aesthetics, because I think this is a very, very pretty movie, frankly. And I think Sailor Moon in general is gorgeous. But leading in, Tim, what did you think of sort of the look of the film?
I thought it looked real good. It looked like a bigger version of the show, and like I think it kind of expanded on what made the show pretty in some very good ways. The HD transfer that we watched looked real nice. I haven't seen like the original version, but like the HD version looked good. I do think like a lot of the like animations with like the villain and stuff like that made it look very interesting. And you know, as a fan of Ikuhara's work, like it just had a very good aesthetic that you kind of see with his stuff. You can kind of see it just like in the themes. There's a lot of just like queer themes in his works, and I think that really it definitely shines through in this movie for sure. Just a little bit.
That's a really good point. I think it's so like Ikuhara's sort of affection for older shoujo anime, particularly the works of Osamu Dezaki, really comes through here. Like the Rose of Versailles, and it's clear, you know, he was watching Dear Brother and Aim for the Ace with his use of these really stylized visuals, and like he does the triple cut thing where a character is like shown doing the same action 3 times for emphasis, which is a Dezaki classic. And I mean, I love Osamu Dezaki, so of course I'm going to gush about anybody who even tries to do anything like him. But Ikuhara is so good at making it his own too, which I adore. He's great at incorporating those stylized visuals and being a bit better about being forthright with like the queer theming and that sort of thing, as opposed to Dezaki, who was like, he pretty openly said like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, I just don't want to. Like, it's not really my place to tread, I suppose, more than anything. But Ikuhara was like, no, I like incorporating that sort of stuff more directly. But Austin, what did you think of the look of this movie?
Talking about queer themes and character designs, the moment that you see Fiore in the modern day sort of political landscape, just knowing Sailor Moon had, you know, queer characters overseas, just seeing that character design with the specific eyes and hair, it's just like, oh man, this is a gay melodrama. You just can't run from it having Fiore looking like that. This is also the first time I've ever seen Sailor Moon in high definition, and let me just say, the colors and the backgrounds are mesmerizing. Like, for the colors, it's mostly extremely bright, analogous and complementary color schemes. Just filling the whole screen. And the backgrounds look a lot like very charming watercolor paintings. Like, the lack of detail is more dreamlike than it is sort of disappointing or, you know, seemingly low budget. There's one scene after the Chrysanium Xanthrax, the flower alien attacks, at some point where the city behind the Sailor Scouts turns into just sort of rough outlines of the buildings against this very cool sort of like cloudy gradient. It was wonderful. It reminded me of a lower tech version of that Yu-Gi-Oh crossover movie where they've got the sort of starlight buildings behind them. There's that one scene where everybody's having memories of how they were all unpopular at school, and I think it was Mars in particular getting made fun of for being a psychic was just straight out of Encanto. It was just, we don't talk about Bruno, but with Sailor Mars. Also, they have enough fun optical processes to like remind me of a video game at times. I associate that sort of like 90s, here's a glow, here's what we could do at the time with like, you know, analog processes. Sometimes with older like Super Nintendo games, during the final battle on the small planet asteroid, where Sailor Moon uses her halation, and they cut to this top-down shot where she just wipes out a ton of the flower aliens, and it looked like Samus's final Smash from Smash Bros. That shot actually elicited a laugh out of Sid. Something about that particular way she just dusts a bunch of people at once with this huge beam was just kind of silly. And yeah, I think it's gorgeous. That's probably half the reason I loved watching this over and over again. You know, it's like mesmerizing for kids. Might as well be a pocket watch on a chain. It is eye candy.
Yeah, I would agree. Though, before I get into the good, getting into the one notable blemish. Speaking of video games, when they first arrive at the planet asteroid, it's a 3D model that looks like a PS1 model, and I don't mean that like in the sense of like even a cutscene model, like where it's like overly smooth and untextured. Like it's textured, but it's rendered at a low resolution. There's no aliasing on it. The animation's a little floaty. Like it's brief, and it's not like it's character animation or anything, or like something that's supposed to be super recognizable, so it's forgivable. But it stands out as sort of bad, but like more a humorous anachronism, I suppose, than anything. But yeah, I made a note of just some of the cool bits, like sort of discussing the transformation sequences. Like as an animator, there's something deeply impressive about those, and I understand, like I get why they reuse them. I would want to reuse that constantly. If I did all that work for what is a lot of characters moving in perspective, and camera movement moving around them as they move in perspective, God, it looks so good. Just yeah, and the transition between the background effects of like the scrolling lights for the texture as they transition into their outfits, like it's really good looking animation, and it's something that I've just grown to appreciate a lot more since I've done animation work.
That's something about Cardcaptor Sakura that I think is nuts, is they'll reuse these transformation sequences, but she wears a different outfit in every episode. Mm-hmm. So they have to put a whole new outfit on her every time they reuse that sequence.
Yeah. Like I mean, you can like there's something to be said about being able to reuse the like framing, or like being able to sort of trace over the old drawings. But yeah, like that's still hard. That's still a lot more work. What is it? The flower henchman, Glycina. I love her. She's a lot of fun. The way she moves and skitters around, I like her design. The way she's built as a single monster to sort of fight against multiple people is really good. There's a lot of fun smearing animation, and a lot of impact frames. My picture for this episode is an impact frame of Chibiusa featuring a guest spot by Umino, which I always love to see Umino making it for the R movie, despite not showing up quite so much in the series at this point. Tuxedo Mask appearing out of the billboard, I loved that effect. That was so good. I don't know, like it just rides the line for me where I think it's cool and not completely cornball. Tuxedo Mask getting stabbed when it goes red with the black silhouettes, and then it goes upside down for the next one. Oh god, that looks so gorgeous and so stylized. I love the way it handles that. Like it's so impressive, and it just cuts like pretty directly to the action. Like it's not like a whole lot of animation, but it lets you just stew in it. For the opposite effect, when Chibiusa plugs up Usagi's nose when she gets knocked out. I love that scene where they're just standing there for like 10 seconds, probably, just about. Like it feels like forever, and then Usagi, like, I love that. Like the punchline hits really hard, I think, because you're like, at first I honestly just thought my video player stopped working for like a split second.
Same. We were concerned.
Whenever I see stuff like that, like in Evangelion, they'll have like a couple of shots where it's just like a single frame for a full minute with no audio. So you're just like, what the is happening?
There was this one shot I forgot to bring up. I'll be really brief with this, but when the space princess Sailor Moon, Super Sailor Moon Eternal, is blowing up the meteor, there's this one shot where it's like black on pink or white on pink, and she's like animated fully, like it's just not on like 2 frames or anything. It's just like 24 frames of her going bad for like a second and a half. I really enjoyed seeing that for a second there.
Yeah, I think there's like just this genuinely wonderful economy of animation. Like they're very good at using like smears for the comedy, for the quick stuff, like knowing when it's worth putting in the effort for full animation and when a smear will get the job done, if not just enhance the look of the thing. There's a lot of direction going on here that I like, a lot of not just animation, but like a lot of like the actual construction of it, the bones of it are so good in a lot of ways. Back in the highlights, just a small thing. I love the way Fiore's hair whips in the wind when he's getting very angry at the end. I just love hair whipping, I guess. Like, I think it's a good effect. It always hits hard, just like in Vampire Hunter D. And of course, the big finale, like not just the full animation of like Super Sailor Moon, of our Neo Queen Serenity Sailor Moon. I can't remember the name of it for life of me. Silver Crystal Sailor Moon. There we go. Whatever. But not just like her full animation, but the way the asteroid breaks apart and in the camera sort of moves around it and everything. So they have to animate the background in perspective while also animating it falling to pieces is always, I love that. Background animation and animation perspective as like a combination is so hard. And it always looks so impressive as a result, not just of the labor, but it just looks gorgeous in a way like even like a practical effect can't. Like, it's just because it's like somebody just drew that. Somebody put pen to paper and created the illusion of a thing breaking apart, and I love it. Love it. And of course, just the overall palette is gorgeous. I really like the designs of the Scouts by Kazuko Tadano. She did the designs for Sailor Moon and Sailor Moon R. I love Naoko Takeuchi's original designs, but I don't think they look as good in animation. I like the rounded forms you see in the slightly more realistic, less like thin proportions in the anime as opposed to the manga. I just think they look great, and of course they look great here. But I just wanted to sort of give a shout out to Kazuko, because she did fantastic work, I think. And also the background designer, Junichi Taniguchi, who's the one who is with the series for basically its entire run, and he does, for at least these first 2 seasons, he does great work. They do great work. Yeah, there's so much to like. Sailor Mercury's visor displaying German text for some reason.
There's enough EITs in there.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's the aesthetics. I'm going to do a couple quick sort of just fun facts, because I want to cram them in here somewhere while we have time before we do final thoughts real quick. Ikuhara as a director is sort of like an auteur figure in the sense that he has like people know him. You can find pictures of him online. Not only can you find pictures of him online, you can find pictures of him in drag cosplaying as Sailor Mars. Particularly, there's a picture of him with Mamoru Nagano, the mechanical designer for a number of series, most prominently Heavy Metal L-Gaim, and he did a lot of designs for Zeta Gundam, and he also created the series 5-Star Stories. It's him and Ikuhara, but Nagano is cosplaying as Sailor Venus, and Ikuhara is cosplaying Sailor Mars, and it's them just sort of like clasping hands, and it's very cute, and I love it. Good for them. And just a note, considering this film's the violence towards Mamoru in this film, there was an interview with Ikuhara where the interviewer said, Ikuhara-san, Utena and Sailor Moon are 2 of the most popular anime amongst Yuri fans. Do you intentionally include shoujo ai subtexts in your work? Shoujo ai being, Yuri, women's love stuff, or girls' love. And Ikuhara responds, no, I'm still able to make a story where it's between a boy and a girl, but I feel irritated to see my girl getting together with some other guy. I've tried to kill off Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon many times, but no matter how many times I tried to kill him, he gets resurrected, so I only get angrier. So I decided it would be way better if the girl just didn't have a boyfriend to begin with. I just had to get those in there because I think they're both very funny.
Holy shit.
This is where if Tanner was here, he would say, he just like me. He just like me for real.
He's just like me for real. Now that Fun Fact Corner is done, final thoughts from the other hosts. Tim.
This was a fun one to watch. This, out of the little anime movies that we did for this month, this was the only one that I hadn't seen before, so it was kind of fun to see something new and different. And like I had some level of familiarity with the series, but it was just kind of fresh for me. And yeah, it was fun to watch. And I think this is just like a nice little capper at the end. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And Austin, final thoughts.
I don't know why, but throughout Anime Month, the little boy that used to exist and watch Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And all this stuff, that part of me didn't bubble up as much to the surface revisiting those movies. But I guess there's a little girl in there somewhere who still really likes Sailor Moon or something, because this was easily my favorite watch. I gotta go back and watch some more Sailor Moon. I gotta talk to my sister more. I gotta watch some Sailor Moon with my sister.
There it is.
There we go. I can't believe wholesome moments here in Bomb Squad. We're reuniting families. We're bringing them together. I'm glad both of you enjoyed it. And I'm really happy I revisited it too, because I wasn't sure about it, because I was like, oh, that's the one that isn't as interesting. But it turns out, no, it's actually just a really tight, fun movie with a lot of good stuff in it, like a lot of good aesthetic stuff and a lot of good narrative stuff, and I'm really happy I got to revisit it. And I'm really happy we got to do Anime Month in general. It turned out really well, I think. At least I liked being on the podcast, for more than 2 weeks in a row, which was a lot of fun. But I won't be back next week. Transitioning into our sign-off as per usual. If you're listening on any of the audio platforms, be sure to give us a follow, rank us highly, give us a like, etc., star, favorite, all that. Be sure to check out the Spotify video version of this podcast, which we also host. If you're on YouTube, of course, like, subscribe, click the bell if you need to, because YouTube is a weird platform that is ever-changing and not great.
Thanks, Google.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez. Be sure, if you want to give us some money, check out our Patreon, where we do things, which is always nice. We'll do more stuff with it eventually, but you have to give us money first. Those are the rules. Give us several $1,000s, and then we'll make a Discord where you can post memes at us or whatever.
We need financiers, baby.
Exactly. We need money if we're going to be posting memes. Not our memes, just things we've stolen from other people. And be sure to tune in next time for Not Me with the Jackass Forever podcast. We hope to see you then, and take care.
Farewell.
In the name of the bomb, we will podcast you!
Mental void?
Just slid my ticket across the table and I said, sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl.